Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into something pretty fascinating.
Absolutely. Always up for a good deep dive.
All right, so today we're tackling this really interesting concept from Hindu philosophy called Wakshaya. It's pronounced Achasa.
Ah, Adhyaasa.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking at it through the lens of Osho's commentary on the Adhyatam Upanishad.
Sounds intriguing. Definitely a bit of a challenge. I mean, we're talking about some pretty profound stuff here.
I know, right? It really makes you question how you see reality.
Well, at its core, Adhyaasa is often translated as superimposition or false attribution.
Okay, so like mistaking something that's not real for something that is.
Exactly. And, it has huge implications for how we understand ourselves and the world.
Especially when the Upanishads talk about Paramatma, this supreme reality,
Yeah.
this divine essence in everything. But then, how come we're often clueless about it?
Right.
It's like that analogy Osho uses, the fish swimming in the ocean, completely oblivious to the very water that's keeping it alive.
Such a powerful image, and it really gets at the heart of the challenge, really knowing what's closest to us.
We're so caught up in the outside world, all our senses pulling us outward, that we miss what's going on inside. That inner reality, the source of everything.
We're almost like someone standing behind a mirror, completely unable to see their own reflection.
I've totally done that, like completely missing something obvious because it was just too familiar.
That's it.
Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, countless times. I think we all have those moments. And that's a big part of Adhyasa, this outward focus that makes us project all our desires, our fears, even our expectations onto the world.
So we create this illusion of separation from the divine.
Exactly. We forget that we're actually part of it all along.
That makes me think about how we're always wanting things that seem so far away or impossible to get.
Oh, yeah.
Like Osho says, desire comes from this perceived distance. The further something seems, the more we want it. It's like that saying, the grass is always greener.
On the other side.
Oh,
Classic, isn't it?
totally.
Hmm.
And I feel like it applies to so many things in life.
Oh, absolutely. Relationships, careers, even our spiritual pursuits. We often think, if only I had that, then I'd be happy.
Right. Like it's this constant chase.
It really is. And it reminds me of the story of King Midas and his golden touch. Remember that one?
Of course. Who wouldn't want everything they touch to turn to gold? At least at first.
Exactly. But then even his food and water became inedible. The things we long for so intensely often lose their appeal once we get them.
It's like that initial excitement fades away as soon as we close the distance.
Right. And it makes you wonder, are we even pursuing the right things in the first place?
Especially those things labeled as spiritual. Could that even be a form of adhyasa too? Like we're seeking fulfillment in all the wrong places.
That's a really insightful point. I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in external validation, even when it comes to spiritual practices. But true spiritual longing, that should lead us inwards.
Toward that self-realization, that deep connection with the divine.
Exactly. Instead of just inflating our egos or focusing on outward achievements.
It's funny because I've had times where I've chased after something so hard. And then when I finally got it, I realized it wasn't what I truly wanted at all.
Ah, that familiar feeling of disillusionment.
Yeah, it's like a wake-up call to start looking inward for that real fulfillment.
And that's such a crucial point because it brings us to the question of how to break free from this cycle of desire and disillusionment, the cycle that Adhyaasa keeps us trapped in, really.
Okay, so how do we do that? What's the key to escaping that trap?
Well, the Upanishads and Osho's interpretations point us toward cultivating stillness. It's about shifting our perception.
So like quieting our minds and tuning out all the noise of the external world, creating some space for a deeper awareness.
Exactly. Osho even suggests something as simple as listening to the sounds of nature, the wind, the waves, even the rustling of leaves.
That's interesting. I never thought of that as a way to connect with a deeper reality.
But it can be incredibly powerful. By turning our attention inward, we start to see the world in a whole new way.
Instead of that limited, egocentric viewpoint.
Right. We start to see the interconnectedness of everything, that divine essence that permeates it all.
It's like finally stepping out from behind that mirror and getting a glimpse of our true reflection. And maybe as we cultivate that awareness, we naturally become less attached to all those external things we thought would make us happy.
Precisely. We begin to understand that true happiness comes from within, not from chasing fleeting pleasures or external validation.
This shift in perception sounds incredibly liberating. like waking up from a dream and seeing the world with fresh eyes.
Absolutely. It's a continuous journey of self-discovery, shedding old beliefs, and embracing a more expansive understanding of ourselves and the universe. Osho refers to this path as Brahmanishta.
Brahmanishta. Can you break that down for me? It's one of those concepts I find fascinating, but still a bit hard to grasp.
Sure, Brahman basically refers to the ultimate reality, the universal consciousness, the ground of all being.
Okay, so like the source of everything.
Exactly. Everything arises from it and everything returns to it. And Brahmanishta, in the context of Adhyaasa, means realizing that we're not separate from that ultimate reality.
We're actually an expression of it.
Exactly. We are, in a sense, already immersed in the divine.
So coming back to Adhyasa, it's like we've forgotten our true nature, that connection to the Brahman. And instead, we've become fixated on the surface level of reality. We're like that fish that's oblivious to the ocean, even though it's swimming in it all the time.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Adhyaasa is like this veil of illusion, a kind of self-imposed blindness. But as we've been discussing, there are ways to lift that veil, to awaken to our true nature. It really is. It's like we're blinded by our own projections, you know? But what's hopeful is that Osho and the Upanishads offer us a way out.
So we're not just stuck in this cycle forever. There's
Yeah.
actually hope for us clueless fish.
Exactly. They tell us that by quieting the mind, turning our attention inward, and realizing that all this worldly stuff is temporary, we can break free.
It's about shifting our perspective,
Yeah.
right? Like recognizing that true fulfillment doesn't come from chasing after things.
Exactly. It's about realizing that interconnectedness, that sense of unity with the divine, it's not something we need to achieve, it's something we need to remember.
It makes you wonder, what would our lives look like if we could really live with that understanding? If we could approach every experience, every relationship, every moment with that awareness of our connection to the divine?
That's a beautiful question. And honestly, it's one that we each have to explore for ourselves. The Upanishads and Osho's teachings give us guidance, but the real transformation happens within.
It's that inner journey, isn't it? Cultivating stillness, turning inward, and recognizing who we truly are.
Precisely. And you know, Adhyasa really highlights the subtle ways we create our own suffering through this illusion of separation.
It's like we're always chasing after things thinking they'll complete us.
And then that satisfaction, it's so fleeting. We get caught in this endless loop of desire and disillusionment, always looking outside ourselves to fill some kind of void.
But if we can see that pattern, if we can start to shift our perception and cultivate that inner awareness, it's like we're given a key to unlock a door we didn't even know was there.
That's such a great analogy. It's not about denying the world or rejecting everything external. It's about recognizing the true source of fulfillment.
This whole deep dive has really been eye-opening. I know I've probably been caught in that Adhyasa trap way more than I'd like to admit. But what I find so hopeful is that there's a way out.
It's a process, a continuous journey of self-discovery, shedding those old beliefs and embracing a more expansive understanding of ourselves and the universe. Osho even calls this path to liberation Brahmanishta.
Brahmanishta. I find that term so intriguing, but it's still a bit fuzzy for me. Can you unpack that a bit more?
Of course, Brahman is a rich concept, but essentially it refers to the ultimate reality, that universal consciousness, the very foundation of everything. You could even think of it as the source from which everything arises and ultimately returns.
Okay, so kind of like the source of all being.
Exactly. And Brahmanishta, in the context of Adhyasa, means realizing that we are not separate from that ultimate reality. We are, in a sense, already immersed in the divine.
So it's like we've forgotten our true nature, that connection to the Brahman. And instead, we become so fixated on the surface of things, like that fish completely unaware of the ocean it's swimming in.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Adhyasa is that veil of illusion, that self-imposed blindness. But as we've been exploring, there are ways to lift that veil and awaken to our true nature. It's a journey, that's for sure. But, it's not just about recognizing Adhyasa on an intellectual level. It's about seeing how it plays out in our daily lives, how it affects our relationships, our work, even our sense of happiness.
Yeah, it's not just some abstract philosophical idea, is it?
Not at all. When we really understand Adhyasa, we begin to see how much of our suffering comes from this illusion of separation, this constant chasing after things, believing they'll complete us, only to find that satisfaction fades so quickly.
We get caught in that cycle of wanting and then being disappointed.
Exactly. Always searching for something outside ourselves to fill that emptiness. But what if we could recognize that pattern, shift our perception, and cultivate that inner awareness we've been talking about?
It's almost as if we've been given this key to unlock a door we didn't even know existed.
That's a great way to put it. It's not about denying the world or pushing away everything external. It's about recognizing where true fulfillment really comes from.
From within, that connection with the divine.
Exactly. And, thinking about Adhyasa this way, it really makes you wonder, what would our lives be like if we could truly embody this understanding? If we could approach everything, every experience, every relationship with that awareness of our inherent connection to the divine?
That's a powerful question.
It is. And one that each of us needs to explore for ourselves. The Upanishads and Osho's teachings offer guidance, but the real transformation, it has to happen within.
It's that inner journey, cultivating stillness, turning inward, recognizing who we truly are. I feel like this deep dive has given me so much to think about, and I hope it sparked something for you listening too.
Me too.
Maybe it's a newfound interest in Hindu philosophy, a curiosity to learn more about Osho's teachings. Or maybe it's simply that renewed commitment to finding inner peace and cultivating awareness in your own life.
Whatever it is, we encourage you to continue this journey.
Because remember, the real adventure, it unfolds within.